Some people call that pattern 5. Some people call it Dorian mode. I don't actually like to use either of those terms, and I will tell you why. First of all, pattern 5. Well, the term pattern 5 refers to the fact that that pattern, when you play it in the key of C, is one of 5 patterns starting in the open position. This would be pattern 1. Pattern 2. Pattern 3. Pattern 4. And finally, pattern 5. The problem with that naming system is that if you want to think of these patterns based on where they appear on the fingerboard in a sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 patterns, in that key, when you first learn them, maybe it makes some kind of sense. So this is the first pattern, it's the first one on the neck. The next one is pattern 2 because it's the next one on the neck. The next one is pattern 3 because it's the next one. But musically speaking, those numbers have absolutely no significance whatsoever. Pattern 1 begins on the 3rd step of the key. Pattern 2 begins on the 5th step of the key. Pattern 3 begins on the 6th step of the key. Pattern 4 begins on the 7th step of the key, and pattern 5 begins on the 2nd step of the key. So why do we want these numbers in our heads that actually have no musical significance? Once you start playing these patterns in different keys, it's, in my humble opinion, absurd to call them patterns 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, a lot of people solve this problem, because it is a real problem, when you connect what you're playing to the theoretical idea and you're trying to describe what you're doing to, let's say, someone who plays another instrument like the piano. Pattern 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is irrelevant. It makes no sense at all. You're not going to want to explain it to them. So a lot of people solve this problem by referring to these patterns based on the mode, which is rooted in the same note the pattern is, and that's actually better, but it is a solution that creates another problem, and the other problem is this. If you are playing a mode in the true sense of what a mode is, modes begin and end on a particular note. So let's say we start with what we're no longer going to call pattern 1, but the pattern that you may already know as pattern 1. You may see it referred to as pattern 1 many places, but we're going to say, okay, that gets called Phrygian mode. Fine, okay, Phrygian mode is rooted in the 3rd of the key of C, in this case E in the key of C. It's the 3rd mode in any key. So we go E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Well, okay, Phrygian mode begins and ends on the 3rd of the key. This pattern begins on the 3rd but ends on the 5th. It begins on E and ends on G. Defining these patterns as modes per se is a problem because it kind of muddies the water of what a mode really is. And no one other than a guitar player would refer to a pattern that begins on E and ends on G as Phrygian mode. Now, it does make sense to refer to the patterns in some musical context that places them in the key so that you know when you play that pattern from one key to another, that it's still the same musical idea. I prefer just using the first note to identify the pattern. So this is the 3. And since we need a more sort of cohesive name for the pattern than just the 3, because the 3 could refer to anything, I like to call it the 3 zone. And this is then the 5 zone. Pattern 2 becomes the 5 zone. Why is it the 5 zone? Because it begins on the 5th of the key, and it's a zone. These patterns are areas on the fingerboard. They're not just scales. They're zones on the fingerboard. So the 5 zone is the zone that begins on 5. The 6th zone begins on the 6th step. The 7 zone begins on the 7th step. And of course, something we call the 2 zone would begin on the 2nd step of the key. If you need a little historical perspective on the 2 zone, I prepared this brief documentary video. Let's watch. First, there was the grid. Then, there was the key of C. Then there were the axis positions. Then, there was the 2 zone in the key of C. And then, there was the 2 zone in the key of G. We are not going to play the 2 zone way up here, starting on the 10th fret, because we don't want to be in the key of C, because we don't want to play the 2 zone up here, because it's easier to play it down here. So we're going to be in the key of G, which makes the 2 A of the key of G. A is the 2 of the key of G. It is the A of the key of G, which makes it 2. And we go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, those numbers, counting it that way, that will apply no matter where you play it, no matter what key you're in. And of course, we can also name the notes alphabetically, and we can be in the key of G and name the notes that we find in the key of G. So A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C. F sharp, don't call it F. Now that we know what the notes are in the 2 zone, what's so special about it, and how can we make really good use of it and see it as the essential element that it is? First of all, the 2 zone is full of symmetries, and I love symmetry because symmetry is the best way to learn stuff. It's the easiest way to learn stuff, and it's the easiest way to remember stuff. If it's there, recognize it. So in this case, we'll start from the high end of the pattern, the highest note of the pattern. That happens to be, in this key, happens to be C. And the fingering pattern for this pattern goes 4, 3, 1, 4, 3, 1 on those 2 strings. The same thing twice in a row. The next 2 strings down from the highest pitched strings refer to an earlier video of why I call this the top, because it's the highest pitch, and we don't care that it's closer to the floor. It's the top because it's the highest pitched. The top string, the next 2 strings down, lower in pitch, use the sort of mirror pattern of the first 2 strings, 4, 3, 1, 4, 3, 1. Shift a fret lower, and you go 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1. So the next string has only 2 notes. It's what I call the Two-Fer. All these zones have 1 string at least that has 2 notes instead of 3. 5 of the 6 strings have 3 notes each. 1 of the strings has 2 notes, except in the case of the 5 zone, or pattern 2, or Mixolydian mode, which has 2 notes on the bottom and 2 notes on the top. That's the only one that has that characteristic. All the other 4, 1 string only with 2 notes. And in this case, the 2 notes fall on the 5th string. We got 4, 3, 1, 4, 3, 1, twice in a row. 4, 2, 1, 4, 2, 1, twice in a row. 3, 1, 4, 3, 1. So what if you think of those two notes as simply 4, 3, 1 that is missing a note? It's like, oh, through evolution, it lost that note, right? It's just kind of fell away. So instead of 1, 3, 4, and I'll play it ascending, instead of 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, maybe there was a 4 there sometime in ancient, the Plasticine era. And then 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 4, 1, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4. So to the same. One note missing, but that's okay. That's how it goes. The moment you say to yourself, that's not an exercise, that's music. That's music. Well, maybe, I think it is. Okay, so that's the two zone. You know where the notes are. You know where the notes are. But it is not just a scale. You can do a lot more with it than think of it as a scale. So let's say what can you do with it that is not a scale? Let's say we really get to know where all these notes are, and you can visualize the shape of the pattern so that you have it indelibly etched in your brain. So just like, say, you indelibly etch, wherever it is you live, think of a map of that place. That's what you want to get to with this zone, or all the zones, each of them. And when you do that, you can do things like, well, let's say we're in the key of G and we want to play chords in the key of G without leaving the zone. So we've got, this is an A minor 7th. That's the 2 chord. The 3 chord is going to be a B minor 7th. Well, that's in the zone also. The next chord is going to be a C major. That's in the zone also. I'm not playing it up here. I'm going to play it here because these notes are all inside the 2 zone. So I've got A minor, B minor, C major. Next note is D major. I could even play it as a D7th if I want to, because that's the 5 chord of the key of G, and it's still in the zone. Next chord is E minor. Still in the zone. Not going to play E minor here. It's not in the zone. Why do I want to do that? Well, because it's not the same voicing, and it doesn't sound the same. Gives me a different musical possibility. F sharp minor 7 flat 5. That's our next chord. F sharp right there. That's our F sharp minor 7 flat 5. And finally, G like that. All 7 chords of the key of G inside the 2 zone. But wait, there's more. We are in the 2 zone, and we're talking about the power of the 2 zone, the power of 2. Catchy, huh? Okay, now, what do I mean by that? Well, the 2 zone is very special in the sense that it straddles the void, and the void position on the fingerboard is a very important position. The void is a position on the fingerboard where there are no notes belonging to the key. Every key has one fret position where there are no notes belonging to the key. And this corresponds with the 3 positions where the notes of the key all align. What does that mean? Okay, well, let's say we go back for the moment, we go back to the key of C, just for simplicity's sake. The open position has the notes E, A, D, G, B, E. E, A, D, G, B, E. All those notes are in the key of C. If we go to the 1st fret, we have some sharps and flats, some natural tones, 2nd fret the same, 3rd, 4th, all of those have a mixture of sharps, flats, and natural tones. When you get to the 5th fret, you have nothing but notes belonging to the key of C, A, D, G, C, E, A. And then the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th frets, once again, are a mixture of sharps, flats, and natural tones in each one. When we get to the 10th fret, we have D, G, C, F, A, D. All of those notes belong to the key of C. And when we get to the 11th fret, there are no notes at all belonging to the key of C. All of those notes are sharps and flats. And we get to the 12th fret, of course, that's the open strings again, so we have come full circle. Every key works the same way. There are 3 positions where the notes of the key align in a given fret position. So in the key of G, we have open strings are all notes of the key of G. E, A, D, G, B, E, all those notes are in the key of G, but the notes on the 1st fret, not so much. The notes on the 2nd fret, not so much. The 3rd, the 4th fret, nope. The 5th fret, let's see, A, D, G, C, E, A. Yeah, those notes are all in the key of G. So what's the difference? The open strings and the 5th fret, just like the key of C, all those notes are in the key of G. But now, when we get to the 6th fret, none of those notes are in G. The 6th fret has no notes in the key of G. What are the notes on the 6th fret? The notes on the 6th fret are A sharp or B flat, D sharp or E flat, G sharp or A flat, C sharp or D flat, F, the one natural tone in that fret position. Well, F is not in the key of G, even though it's a natural tone. Of course, F sharp replaces F in the key of G. And, of course, A sharp, B flat. So none of the notes on the 6th fret are in the key of G, and all of the notes on the 7th fret are in the key of G. The notes on the 7th fret are as follows: B, E, A, D, spells the word bead, F sharp, B. B, E, A, D, F sharp, don't call it F, B. Well, that's an axis because all those notes are in the key of G. And then we continue. The 8th fret, 9th, 10th, and 11th frets are a mixture of notes. Some of them are in the key, some of them are not. So each fret position is not an axis because it has a mixture of notes. And of course, the 12th fret, once again, is only notes in the key of G. So the 2 zone in the key of G and the 2 zone in any key will go between the 2nd axis, or the axis that is rooted in 2. This is the 2, the A, and the axis that is rooted in 3. And of course, that's the way these axis positions work. There will always be one on the 2 of the key, on the 3 of the key, and on the 6 of the key. The open strings in the key of G are the 6 axis, or the axis that is rooted in 6, or you can call it the Aeolian axis if you like. And the 2, we could call that the Dorian axis perhaps, because it does begin and end on A. And the open strings begin and end on E, and the 7th fret begins and ends on B, and B is the 3 of G. So what more do you want? Well, okay. We know that there are no notes on the 6th fret in the key of G, and that makes it a little easier to keep track of what the notes in this zone are, because we know that we just avoid that fret entirely on every string. We never touch the 6th fret in the key of G if we want to stay in the key of G. So visualizing the pattern of the 2 zone becomes a little easier. It's not so much of a jumble where there is ultimately a note on every fret. All the other patterns ultimately have at least a note in every single fret position as you go from one string to the next, ultimately, if you take them all together. And in the 2 zone, that doesn't happen because you have this axis at one end and this axis at the other end, and then you have notes that protrude from around that axis. What I just did was I played the half steps and left everything else out. That's another way that we can use these zones to keep organized where the notes are. And think of the scale patterns as only one component of the idea of what a zone is. The 2 zone, of course, does begin with the Dorian mode, because if you start on 2 and go only as far as the next 2, in other words, from A to A, and this idea, anytime you do this, 2 minor 7th chords in a row, rooted on the 6th string, minor 7th, minor 7th, that's going to be 2 and 3 of whatever key. So if we do that somewhere else, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3. Using the shape of a zone to suggest a musical idea is really at the essence of the way this instrument works. It's like the piano. If you sit down at the piano and you're thinking black keys, white keys, physical contour of the keyboard, the black keys are raised, the white keys are lower, so it affects the shape of a piano player's hand as they play, and they make choices about where they're going to play something or how they're going to play it. You kind of crush the keys together. It's going to be different depending on whether you're playing up on the black key or the white key, just because of the shape and the contour of it. And so every instrument has its musical, predilections, the vocabulary of that instrument. A saxophone player will do different things because of the physical mechanics of their instrument. Guitar players do things because of the mechanics of their instruments. So the mechanics of the guitar gives you certain geometric arrangements, and exploring those geometric arrangements on the fingerboard the way the guitar wants to be played. You can visualize the boundaries or the borderlines of the zone. So in this case, we have a 2, which is A. We have a 2, 3, 4, 5, which is D in the key of G, right? So A is 2, 5. We go up a third to 7. We go up a fourth, 7, 1, 2, to 3. We go up a fourth to 6, 6, 7, 1, 2. So we've got 2, 5, 7, 3, 6, 2. And that gives us a 6/9 chord rooted on the 5. And so that's a 5 chord, but it's not a dominant 7th chord. It's not a 7th chord. It's a 6/9 chord, using only the notes of the border of the zone. Then, this is the 4 of the key, because the other boundary, the other border starts on 4, 2, 3, 4, and it goes like that. Those are the notes of the upper boundary or the upper border of 2. And that's also a 6/9 chord, but it's rooted on the 4 this time. We've got a 6/9 on 4, we've got a 6/9 on 5, and in this case, we actually have the root on the lowest string. So we've got these 2 6/9 chords. That make up the boundaries, and then the axis chords, the 3 and the 2 minor 7th chord. So the musical idea stems simply from recognizing the shape of the zone. So if we only play the thirds that fit within the zone pattern, this is what we get. So I'm descending from 1 to 7 to 5 to 4 to 2 to 1 to 6, 5, 4, 3. 1, 7, 5, 4, 2, 1, 6, 5, 4, 3. A slightly different vocabulary on the fretboard when you're practicing something like thirds, parallel thirds, except they're not ascending or descending exactly in a scale. And so you get the groupings that, result from the shape of the pattern. And the shape of the pattern, of course, results from what's physically convenient to play on the fingerboard. You're playing the notes that are available to you within that part of the fingerboard. This is a mechanical device. And this is also a mechanical device to accomplish something musically. Now, I'm going to keep my fingers lined up with the frets in this position as much as possible. So if I have two notes on the same fret, I bar. And the fingering is really important in this kind of thing, because you have a 4-fret span with your hand. Your hand is a 4-fret span. You've got a minor third between your first and third fingers. You've got a major third between your third and fourth. Major third, first and second, minor third, second, and fourth. The same again. So we've got this shape. This is a shape. I mean, these two together are, let's say it's a dynamic shape. And this ends and begins the same way. Then we got two of these. And we got this thing, a little mini bar. These are thirds in the 2 zone. And of course, there's always arpeggios. Well, that about scratches the surface for this idea, and I hope you get something out of this. And I will be covering all 5 zones in a similar fashion and building on this concept of the idea of zones as areas on the fingerboard which provide the resources for playing scales, arpeggios, chords, just about everything in each of the 5 zones. So anyway, I appreciate everybody who's been subscribing and who's been watching. And to those who are here for the first time, like and subscribe. It's down there somewhere. Okay, I'll see you soon.